Okay, it's all you.
I'ma trust the whole damn process for the record till we breaking records. Reminisce about the past days, now we rise and fly. Journeys to the sky, azimuth inside my grip, always know the way now. Beauty fill my days now, take it day by day. Sound couldn't be prouder, cause you know we alive. Hey.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to In Process. As always, I'm your host, Andrés Moreno, and this is a podcast by Azimuth Theatre highlighting artists and their process. Today, I have somebody who I've known for quite a while, and we've crossed paths here and there, but somebody who I've actually been very lucky to spend a lot of time with as we built this podcast, the one and only, the technical genius, Selina Painchaud.
Painchaud. Yes, French for hot bread.
I literally
Yep.
didn't realize that until
Yes.
I typed it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Selina Painchaud, or hot bread.
Yes.
Don't call
Yeah.
her hot bread. Hi, Selina.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, I'm so stoked. Like I mentioned in the intro, like I've known you for a long time.
Yeah.
And we have crossed paths so many different times,
Mhm.
but I don't think we've ever had the luck of working on a project together outside of school.
No, not outside of school.
No.
Nope.
And here we are. Now you are the Steven to my I don't know, the people who have My Favorite Murder. I don't remember their names. But I remember Steven, the tech. But thank you so much for being a part of this. Honestly, I just want to start by saying, like, getting to work with you and getting to know you again, it's so lovely, especially because you have such a good, like, energy. And I feel like you and I share this thing where you've seen the whole kind of scope of where this project has gone.
Absolutely.
And it makes me so happy. So welcome. Welcome. I'm wondering if we can start off by just kind of telling us how your kind of journey brought you into working in the arts.
Okay, well, I was very privileged as a kid. My mom and dad and my grandparents were really good about just bringing me to shows, to seeing things. I laugh sometimes. My mom, while I was in the womb, went to Phantom of the Opera and I kicked. And like since then, it's only been theater.
Little fetus Selina just knew.
This is it, man. This is my future. Yeah. Yeah, so it really just started from there, and I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I joined a drama class in my high school. My high school did not have a good drama program. It was really small. We had no budget, but even then I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then I like shopped around for different universities, and I stumbled across McEwen's theater production program and was like, okay, let's try it. If I hate it, it's only 2 years. Like, we'll figure it out. And I loved it. Within the first month, I was like, yeah, okay, this is it for me. Yeah, and I've just been learning and growing since then.
So a couple of follow-up questions to
Yes.
that. So when you started your whole journey, especially in theater, did you start as a performer?
No. Well, okay, that's a lie.
Oh, here it is.
The truth. Yeah, no, I acted a little bit in the drama class, and I did a couple bits of performance, but I realized very early that for me, I get very obsessed almost, like really almost too much in my head when I'm acting and in that world. Like even when I'm not on stage, I like think about it and I'm constantly just in it. And I realized that it was too much. Like it wasn't healthy for me. And I also really loved the kind of secret creation that happens on the tech side that people just don't know about because our job is to not be seen. So there's this really cool, like, I really was drawn to that. And yeah.
I'm somebody who I went into the performing side of theater. However, I think from a very early age, I knew that I wanted to be more in the directing side because I feel like some of the technical like magic that y'all get to play with is so fun. Can you tell us a little bit about that secret world of technicians?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's so big, and I think people forget that like it's its own profession. It's its own craft, which I think has been very cool, especially recently to kind of talk about with people is that what we do is so important and but also so fulfilling. Even though like in conventionally there isn't that same like gratification, I find. Like it's kind of designed as we are facilitators to art. We are here to just make it what it is and help support, which I think is kind of a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's such an interesting line because I remember I went to RDC before I came to MacEwan. And at RDC, we were taught to not like thank the text at the end of the show. Because it's supposed to be that thing of like, if people don't know they're there, they did their job.
Yeah,
Which I find...
that's interesting. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that you talk about that because there are still like it's a very mixed bag on what technicians really want from that recognition because you're right. Like there is a level of kind of secret that we like to keep. Like we don't want to tell you how we did the thing, you know, like you just get to come see the show and experience the quote unquote magic, right? Like for us, it's a technical craft, but for the audience, it's magic. And that's very cool. But it is, yeah, it's something where I think, and we can like go into it more later, but there's this need, I think, in the arts community to acknowledge that there is lots of work that's done, that even though that doesn't necessarily mean acknowledging them at the end of the bow, but just really being conscious that the work that is done when you're not around, right? Especially if you're a performer or like a director where you're very like, I would say, rehearsal room focused. There is like, there's other things going on to kind of help, and you don't really notice until you're in that final building blocks before opening night.
Yeah. And so, okay, so you went to MacEwan.
Yes.
And you found that you really enjoyed it. Was there a part of your education that really you like that was your bread and butter, your jam, you really enjoyed it?
Oh, it's been a process because I sort of let my career and how I went after school shape me. So a lot of the things that I was like really into in school, I found wasn't really feasible as a career option going out. I had always been really drawn to sound, and that is something that I still do to this day. That is still I would say if we were thinking departmentally about theater, sound and audio is definitely my wheelhouse. It's the thing I find the most joy in. But I love painting. I love props. I love that artisan side. I find that for me, specifically in that SEM niche where it's very much about the like tracking of props and that like backstage stage carp energy, also a big fan. I really love it. Like I love that department. But as I've left school, I have found a new joy in video design and video, especially as that's coming up as more and more of a common thing, especially with the pandemic. And there's just a new layer of video and live streaming that has come into the fold. So that's something a new skill I've acquired that I have found a real deep appreciation for. And through my position here at Fringe Theater, I've had to learn the sides of lighting, which has never truly been like what I've always focused on, but I have learned lots about it, and I have gained a knowledge and a respect for lighting technicians and operators and designers. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's so funny because we go to school to learn all the tools. But then you leave, and it's really all about like how those jobs offer you the opportunity to practice them, right?
Absolutely.
Have you had any opportunities projector mapping?
I have, yeah. It's funny because my biggest example would be with Azimuth Theatre with their show with All That Binds Us as a sort of a video mentor for Effie Adar. She was the video designer on that show, and I was able to really help her with building her show on a program we call QLab, which is super incredible. And I'm a big old nerd for it. Yeah, and I find with every single show I work on, I learn something new. And that's part of one of the reasons why I love doing what I do, is because I always feel like I'm enhancing and growing as a technician. And one of the big things I learned on that show was how to actually integrate Photoshop in with QLab to do proper masking with their video functions, which was very fun because All That Binds Us had this beautiful drapery that was hung along the back, and they wanted to have different breakups of imagery on top of the fabric, right behind the fabric, but not on the rest of it. So we ended up playing with about 4 or 5 layers of projection, all with one projector. So no, it was really cool, and it was fun to sink my teeth into that knowledge.
That is so cool. Yeah, awesome. I think since the pandemic started, that's really where I started to kind of explore, what is my artistry, For a while I was doing the gigs and the work.
Yep.
but getting that chance to, like Morgan Yamada calls it, like the great incubator, like to really sit in that incubation period and go, what do I want to do as an artist? Did you kind of feel the same as through the pandemic?
A little. I had the very great honor of being attached to a building during the pandemic. So I did a lot of painting and a lot of cleaning of the building that we are recording this podcast in. And during that time, we also learned a lot about live streaming and how to digitally access theater. And so I ended up having to, with my amazing production team here at Fringe, we all learned parts of what it means to live stream and how to essentially record a TV show is basically what we did. Is like, we're in theater, but we're like, how do we make theater transfer cleanly and in a useful way into a live stream platform? And so we ended up really utilizing a lot of resources from how people have been doing things on YouTube and how people have been doing live streams there, and how other educational facilities like Grant MacEwan had started doing online classes and filming in-house there. So we ended up getting some knowledge from there and just sort of like picking all of our knowledge from a whole bunch of incredible people. And we're able to do a lot of work with helping make shows like Azimuth All That Binds Us be a hybrid, so that we could have audience in space, but also you being able to watch it online simultaneously.
Yeah.
So that was a big knowledge boost. That was very cool.
It's cool because like all the skills you have are transferable. It's just a different medium, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I really, if there's something I'm really thankful that the pandemic has done, is kind of increase the idea of accessibility for theater.
Absolutely.
Because even speaking of All That Binds Us, I was in the Yukon at the time.
Okay.
And so the only way that I got to watch it was through live stream.
Right? Very cool.
Yeah. It was the first time I was like,
great.
hey, this is doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you've gone through this kind of learning process of all the jobs that you've been able to be a part of. What would you say now is kind of your what you're focusing on, or what you're really excited to maybe like delve into?
Yeah, I am currently the technical director with Fringe Theater, and that means that I am helping facilitate other really cool art coming into our building and our spaces. So I end up coming in contact with a lot of very cool theater companies in the city and very cool indie projects. So I'm spoiled. Like I get to be around so much cool art, even though I don't necessarily get to be like involved deep within the creation process of those. I get to really learn about what they need and like be able to help make their dreams a reality, which is a beautiful thing. And there's a lot of really interesting projects that Fringe is producing coming down the line.
I'm so thankful to be an artist for that specific reason, that like the idea that we get to always learn something new and continue growing and continue learning from our peers.
Yeah.
Such a wonderful thing. Such a beautiful, beautiful like opportunity that being an artist affords us, right? Have you ever dabbled in design?
Little. I've done a lot of helping, like more from an operator facilitator standpoint, but I have done a lot of assisting designers into getting their show into a producing level, or like opening night. So it's in the back of my brain. I have never fully independently designed a show before. It is something I've been thinking about though. Nice. Like potentially getting my feet wet in sound or video design. So, right?
Do you have a dream project you'd love to, like, if someone was like, okay, we're gonna let you do this, what project would you want to do?
Oh, I don't know. I honestly would just love to be allowed to play. I think the thing that scares me the most about dipping my toes into design is that as an operator, I have created a real idea in my head of what like the best like design person would be. Like, oh, it'd be really cool if designer had this, this, and this. So I feel like having a space of where I could be allowed to be like, oops, I made a mistake, but that's fine. Like that instant forgiveness energy would be very cool. Like I don't even have specifics on what kind of show it would be or anything, but it would be very cool to just have a beautiful forgiving space and just being able to learn how to design while doing it. That would be very cool. But who knows? Someday.
Listen, I like to think that the universe is always listening, so
Yeah.
now they know.
Universe.
Right?
Sound design. Yeah.
So do you have a specific kind of theater or performance art that you enjoy the most?
My venue partner and partner in crime, Megan Weir, always laughs at me because I have a very high tolerance for basically any art. Like seriously, like I love me some super obscure contemporary dance. Like ones where it's really in the body and like 20 minutes of like almost blackout and it's just someone like wiggling on the floor like a worm. Like that, I love it. I love it. I think it's incredible. Like I think it's like, for me, I don't know. No, I haven't found a type of art that I don't like working. So it's hard for me to be like, no, I love this specifically. But my main skill is mixing large musicals. So I love large musicals. I love lots of laughs, lots of chaos, lots of getting it into my fingers. Yeah, like I'm gesturing right now and it's absolutely a podcast. But like, yes, lots of fader movement in my fingers. And I love doing that kind of art. Yeah, I love love teching dance, I have done music and bands and that kind of thing.
So just because now I'm curious, how does that work with sound mixing a musical? Because really, at the end of the day, you're the one in charge of how it sounds a little bit.
Sort of. I mean, it's one of the most, it's the most least defined role, but a sound designer is in theory, like they plan everything. They're there to really, as an operator for a musical, your job is to push faders at the end of the day. So the sound designer helps you kind of get to a level with your console, with the speakers, with the everything that builds up a sound system from mics to speaker, like through the whole chain. They help get you there. And then you're one with the script. I find the most engaged I feel with a piece of art is when I am literally moving a voice, if that makes sense. Like it's not like it's hard to explain, but there's this feeling you get when you have people singing and you know exactly when they breathe and you're like your finger is guiding that with the mics to kind of match them. And every sound person will get this, but it's that kind of, you're just following them, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of with it. And so I find that, when I live mix shows at any level, whether it's like a one guy with a comedy act who's just on a microphone the whole time, or it's 20 people on stage doing dance choreo with singing, you're with it. You're with the show. And that's why I love it. I know some technicians hate that and that's not their thing. And they would rather just be like, no, I have all my lights programmed and I'm just going to press this go button for the whole show. And that's also very great and very cool. But yeah, no, it's my favorite part.
So cool. And it's blowing my mind a little bit because you have those moments where you realize those blind spots that you haven't noticed. And that's definitely one of them. Like, the idea that y'all are breathing with us from however long or far away the tech booth is so beautiful.
It's true. It's a very beautiful process. And it's something that is really strange for us because we don't really get to connect with the show in the same way as the creative and performance team does. We kind of see the shows very differently. For us, we kind of see it very structured. Like I always make the joke that technicians take art, we turn it into numbers to turn it back into art. That's just what we do. Like more often than not, I know a person's mic number before I know their name. And that's just because there isn't that moment of I don't know, introduction or whatever. Like we see these shows very differently. We see them as lighting cues and moments. And that moment when the shoe drops is a really cool blackout. And that's really big for us. And like for us, that's what the show means. So yeah, there is like a different way that we see the show and experience that art. But yeah, there's still that love there. It's just
totally
different.
What I'm loving here, and it's something that you've kind of touched on a little bit, is like, right now, the way that theater is done is very like technical side does its own thing, performance side does its own thing, and then we come together at the end, and it all comes together, and it comes together beautifully. But like, what do you think is missing to kind of create that infrastructure for us to work together in a full process?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and it's something that I'm finding a lot of, I'll say unconventional theater is sort of breaking down those barriers, especially because in a lot of ways theater is very colonial. There's
Yeah.
it white. And,
very white.
Very white. We have to work very hard to break down those walls. And that comes with also tech. And tech is very, very binary, very like structured. And so finding ways of still producing something that's the one trick with tech theater specifically, is that for us, we are very product based and we can't really change that, unfortunately. Like for us, it's all about opening night. It's all about consistency for us. And it's finding this way of playing with what the intention of the piece is. So if your goal isn't perfection or that colonial clean blackout, like that's the only way I can kind of explain it, but you can kind of break some of those rules and be like, you know what, it's okay if it's not perfect, but we're going to try this tonight. And so I think as long as there's open dialogue, that's the biggest thing, is the sooner you can be open with what you need and what your expectations are for a process, and especially as it comes into the theater, you can kind of start breaking those molds and it can become more of a unified thing. I talk in the performance lab I give through Azimuth. I do talk a lot about like different tips and tricks on how to break down those walls a little bit, but it's still, we're all learning. Like it's a very new concept, and some people and some productions don't need it nor want it, but I think that there is room for us to really understand the differences between the two departments, and that also it doesn't have to be messy getting together. Yeah. Q to Q doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't. There's things we can do to kind of help that transition a little bit. It's a crazy process, but yet at the end of the day, we do make the art for audiences to enjoy. So go us.
I can think about somebody who doesn't understand like that process listening to this and being like, whoa, right? Because you're right, like Q to Q doesn't have to be messy, but oftentimes like the infrastructure isn't there to not make it messy, right?
Exactly. And that is a lot of it, is that I think there's a lack of understanding, I think. Like it's so wonderful to hear that and recognize like consciously that there are things that happen that you don't see. And I don't know if every performer knows that or knows even to recognize that. And I think as we start to break down those walls a little bit and be like, yeah, no, like the prop you're holding took a week to make, like as an example. Like I think it can kind of help remember that there is humanity in every corner of theater, even the people who are pressing the buttons. And like in some ways they are very different professions. There are so it's like it kind of makes sense why there's that way. Technicians really think with the mind and artists think with the heart. And so that comes with a level of distance with how they engage in a room. And I think as long as we understand the differences and are willing to kind of compromise on where we can kind of meet, I found great success I've had the privilege of working a lot of really incredible Indigenous run and focused shows. And that's we have found that smudging together has really helped. Not every technician is into it, but I think the acknowledgement that there is a checking in that is respectful of everyone's boundaries, that is really cool. And I've seen that as a use. Yeah, no, there's lots of ways that we can kind of start to blend.
Thank you so much. These insights are wonderful.
The In Process podcast is brought to you by the Canada Council for the Arts and Azimuth Theatre's Traversing the Azimuth Multimedia branch. It is our aim to continue to introduce and deepen the relationships between our community and the artists within it. To keep this podcast going, go to azimuththeatre.com/donate to help with the continuation of this podcast.
So we've talked about your journey as a technical theater artist, and thank you for sharing all of that, by the way, because like I've been doing some learning sitting here and I'm like, all right, this is great.
Cool. Yeah.
Right? But in your personal life, what are kind of the things growing up that inspired you to do art?
I went to Edmonton Opera a lot. My grandfather was really into opera, so he would take my sister and I, and we would go. So I learned a lot about different types of art very early. So that also really helped. You know, we did a little bit of smattering of Citadel shows, you know, like just taking things where they came, and it just sort of grew and grew. And I think I've seen so much more theater now that I've been in the industry.
Totally.
And I know about things, and I'm like wanting to, especially I didn't realize I would have a true joy for indie theater until I got into the industry. And then I really got it. I was like, oh, and it's such a niche performance, I find, from like a general public standpoint, that I just wish people knew about. I just want everyone to know about the cool, like, adventures that people are going on.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Were you big into like movies?
Yes, I was. Yeah. The reason I picked the high school I did was because they had a film studies program. And I was like, this is cool. This is a cool, like, options program. Let's do it. Yeah, no, and I loved film. And I thought that it was so cool. And it was also part of the reason that I got into Grant MacEwan, was because I was like, okay, 2 years and we'll try it. And like, it's funny that you said that you went to Red Deer College, because honestly, Red Deer College was the beginning of me searching with what I wanted to do for a career and training. They have such an incredible openness about them when they're promoting for their school, that they were so open about, like, it's cool if you don't pick us, but like, come see a show and like come experience it. Like, and my mom and I drove down to Red Deer and we saw Rent. That when they did Rent, and I was like, oh man, like, this is cool, like, this is great. And like, the only reason I didn't was because I didn't want to pay the rent, to be honest. Like, and I was like, the cost of moving, when I am very spoilt and live in Edmonton, which is a vibrant theater community already, I didn't have to worry about the travel costs. So I was like, no, let's pick something closer to home. Yeah. No, but I meant, what I was going on a tangent with it was that they also did have a film program as well. Like, there were, or TV, I think was what it was. But so it was interesting, and it started getting my brain like clogging and coiling. And then I realized that I was willing to be like, okay, 2 years, we'll try theater. And then if this doesn't quite feel right, maybe I'll try film. And I learned that the union that is shared between theater and film. There's just a slightly different training and slightly different lists you get on, but they shared. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. And like, my world has not taken me in the direction of film, but it's there, and yeah.
Would you ever? So you it's something that you'd still want to explore, hey?
I've dabbled. It's so interesting because I'm not, I guess, professional with film, but that's not quite right, because like, what I do for a living is professional theater. Yeah. And professional teching. But we've done a lot of filming in this facility with the equipment and the way that we've had to adapt during the pandemic. We have had to dabble a lot more in recording and filming, and these are things I was not trained on, and I have just kind of learned as I've went along, and kind of stolen and acquired knowledge from much wiser folks. So it's like, maybe I would love to, but I think that it would be me being a very baby tech in that world and sort of climbing up. But yeah.
With everything that you've kind of been learning, because you're right, you have had to become a filmmaker.
Yeah, a little bit, right? Yeah.
Is there a specific part of it that you'd love to explore?
I really like script supervising, very much and continuity. Things where it's very, okay, the set needs to be exactly how it was for this scene, and like really tracking that meticulous movement. I love that part of film. So if I was ever to get into a specific department in that kind of realm, it would be like a PA.
And film-wise and movie-wise, growing up, what was like did you have a favorite movie that you watched over and over?
I'm a big Wes Anderson nerd, so like I love really big stylized stuff. Yeah, I like that like meticulous shot stuff that I find really fun. I was really into like just generally studying auteurs and folks that have a very like honed craft in film, where they've had more control from a producing side, so it's allowed them to have way more control in the filming of things. So I find like a buzz with looking at and watching films that are very like, oh yeah, this is so them. Like, yes. But I'm a nerd like that. But yeah.
No. I love that. Like, one of my favorite directors is Baz Luhrmann.
Yeah.
And for me, the thing is like the amount of visual play he has.
Absolutely. Oh. Yes.
Yeah. I find his movies are so stimulating in the best way possible. All right. So now we get to move on to the personal side of things.
Ooh,
I love the
exciting.
personal side of things.
It's your favorite part.
It really is. And let me start with just like a chill question, but like, let's say you've had a rough week,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, you know what, I need something to like relax.
Yeah.
What would be your go-to?
Oh, for relaxing. I am a big reader. I read a lot of YA, especially because it's not as challenging mentally in the sense that it's not really dense writing, but it's beautiful stories and beautiful content. And the YA book world has gotten really cool and really diverse and really fun. And yeah, no, I will always just be reading. That would be, yeah, that's what I do.
And how do you, as somebody who really aspires to be a reader, how do you like hold yourself to be like, I'm gonna relax, let's read?
I mean, my toxic trait. No, I'm just kidding. No, I like to disassociate. So, like, I love the idea of escaping into a different world. So for me, it's like, oh, yeah, like reading a good book, especially if it's something that's, like, if I'm feeling down, reading like more of a fluffy romance kind of feel like that, I can kind of sink into that world to kind of wash away whatever's bothering me in this one. So that's kind of how I motivate myself.
Yeah.
I also am part of the Storygraph app. I highly recommend.
Okay.
It's cool. They've got really great data. And they've got little fun pie charts on your reading. And
I love that.
love me some data.
So, do you watch RuPaul?
I don't know.
That's okay, but you know
But
this
I know
question.
I know what's coming.
I love how many times you've heard me do this, so you're like, okay, I'm prepped.
Yeah.
But if you could go back, even not necessarily go back and talk to yourself, but if there was a piece of knowledge that you think is so good you want to share to a young artist, especially somebody who wants to explore technical theater,
Yeah.
what's something you'd say?
It's a career. Don't worry. You can make money at it. Like, don't listen to grandma, like,
Yeah.
like it's okay. Like, I find there's so much pushback sometimes and a fear. It's more, I think it comes from a place of love often, but there's this initial fear, like, oh no, like the arts, like, oh no, like, are you gonna be okay? It's like, yes, you are going to be okay. Like, there's a beautiful fostering community, and especially I find if you've got the kindness and you're a good person, you're a fun person to be around. I find, like, if you're, I don't know if fun is the right word, if you're a warm soul, if there's this engagement with what you're doing, I think people read that and people want to be around that, even if you're still learning your craft. There's, especially in the tech side, if you're a great person to be around, we are willing to trade and learn and really share knowledge, like this community of people you can kind of call to, and I love that, and I think that people need to know that. We don't talk as much about the fostering part of this career when people are so initially like, oh no, capitalism, no, like, no, you're gonna die. It's like, no, like, you can do it. It is work, I will say that, absolutely. Like, it takes a lot of work and dedication and a lot of professional development constantly to kind of keep up.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely a career. Don't be afraid. Try it. Try it.
I love that. And I like, thank you for bringing the fostering in, because you're right. Like, the community's there. And I think, like, again, not everybody in the community will want to do this. But once you find that person who's like, hey, I'm down to, like, help you out.
And I find if there's like an exchange, especially if you've got a skill or something that they want to learn, but they have something you want to learn, it becomes so easy to be like, yeah, like,
let's do it
let's
together.
trade, let's learn the things.
Totally. And so, with that being said, do you ever think you teach?
I sort of do.
Yeah.
Like, if this podcast is any indication, no, my brain is sometimes a little frazzled. The way I say words are not necessarily super logical all the time. So I wouldn't say that I would fit necessarily in a structured classroom. But I think that I thrive and exist in a realm of, I have a craft and I have worked to acquire my knowledge, and I want other people to have this knowledge. There's this old way of thinking, especially on the tech side of theater, that it's job security if you know what you're doing and no one else does.
Right.
And I think especially during this time where we're starting to realize that redundancy is important, on all levels, including your operators, that you do need to share a little bit more. There needs to be an exchange in knowledge. And I think that all technicians are called in a way to help each other a little bit. And I think it's growing. It's growing. It's something that has, I think, taken some time, but we're opening up. And I think we're starting to really be like, yeah, you know what? I know a lot about QLab, but I know absolutely nothing about how to run this lighting console. Do you want to trade? Like, can we help? Or, I mean, even in this building with Fringe, I bring in a lot of really new techs who just come out of school. And as much as school can try to prepare you, you don't really know until you're in it, right? And you're like getting your feet wet and like really mastering a console for the first time solo. That can be scary. And having people that you know you can call upon, even in your own workplace, is really cool. And so I end up doing that a lot, is kind of helping younger and newer techs, or techs that just haven't touched a board in a while, who need help, right? And so
that's so great. Like, I feel like the word mentor fits really beautifully in your world right now.
Yeah,
that's like what I'm really enjoying right now. And like, yes, like publicly facing, a lot of theater companies are offering mentorships and all this kind of stuff, but it's kind of that thing that you're talking about where, like, I think there's a desire now to connect to those younger generations, because we realize that they have so much to teach us as well.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, and how to see art differently, and how to see our processes differently.
Oh, totally. There is so much that I have seen come out of processes in recent years. If you give them the space and you are open to messing with what is traditional, there's so much room to just like to really learn about how, why do we always do it this way?
Yeah.
Why do we do 10 of 12 days on Q to Q? Do we have to? No, we don't. We don't.
We
Friends.
really don't.
We don't, friends. We can sleep. Sleep is important.
Why do we work 6 days a week where we could do it in 5?
We don't have to.
We don't have to.
Don't have to.
This is us telling you,
guys,
free
sleep.
yourself. That's it. We fixed the whole industry.
We've done it.
That's all this needed to be.
There it is. My work here is done.
Besides what else we've talked about, is there anything else you'd like to highlight about yourself, or any hobbies that you have?
Not a lot. I would say a lot of my energy and time has gone into what I love to do for a living, which is not super healthy, but it's a fact of life, right? Like I love what I do. I'm really blessed to be in a space where I get to be around really cool art and help make really cool art. And it's a beautiful thing. I mean, what am I doing when I'm not? I mean, I'm reading, I'm doing puzzles, I'm going for walks, like, vibing as a human. I don't know.
And puzzle people are big brain people. I can't do puzzles. I've always wanted to.
It's so funny that you say big brain people, because I find it, like, my brain turns off when I'm puzzling. Like, I find, because I do struggle with anxiety. So for me, when I'm doing puzzles, I find I have to focus on the task. I have to focus on looking for the blue puzzle piece that fits here. So I can kind of focus, like hyper focus on this, which forces my brain to not think about all of the other things that could potentially spiral. So I find it very therapeutic in a weird way.
I love that. And I love that for you, because that is definitely not how I see puzzles.
Yeah,
but
that's totally fair.
Who knows? Maybe I'll try it with that kind of view, and we'll see. Yeah.
I also find if you don't put a time limit on yourself, like, no, puzzle will never get done. If you're like, it needs to get done tonight, you're like, no, it won't.
It'll take me however long it takes.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you weren't doing theater...
Yeah.
Do you know, like, do you have an inkling of what you would have, like, explored?
Yes. My fallback would have been library tech. It would have been, working in a bookstore or working in a library. Yeah. I know that innately. Yeah. It was my fallback. But I was like, nah, I'm going to do technical theater instead. Let's do it.
I just want to say really quickly, like, getting to know all of that side of you, like... I would have never imagined it, but it's such a beautiful collage. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem.
Now we're going to do some rapid fires to kind of end it off.
All right, let's
try not to think too hard into these.
I will try not to do that.
And just know that they're fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will not be stressed.
All right. Rapid fire.
Okay.
So, favorite snack?
Oreo cookies.
Oreo cookies.
I love Oreos.
Great.
Yes.
Favorite flavor of ice cream?
Mint chocolate or tiger?
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
Do you like, sorry, side
No,
question.
no,
Do you
what
like
that means.
licorice?
I I like some licorice, all sorts, but I don't like black licorice on its own. It's the sherbet orange mix solves it for me.
All right.
Anyway, yes.
Okay. Do you have a favorite song that you're listening to right now?
Ooh, not really. I listen to a lot of different stuff. It's part of the jam of being a theater tech is you acquire a lot of music. So I
Yeah.
find I listen to a lot of tropical house. I've been feeling down lately. So for me, like tropical house just gets me in the mood that like, oh, I'm floating on a beach somewhere. Like, yeah.
Favorite book?
Off the top of my head, because I read a lot, but off the top of my head would be Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas.
Okay.
It's an incredible YA trans lead, like coming of age story, but like spooky ghosts and like LA nightlife. Kinda.
Alright.
It's great. It's incredible. I would
Okay.
really recommend you read it.
I'm
It's
gonna-
cool because it's great.
I want to look into it
It's like
because
it dives a lot into like Latinx culture and stuff too. So you'd actually really like it. Oh, we'll talk after.
we'll talk after. Are you a daytime or a nighttime person?
I am a nighttime person, as
Yeah.
I think most technicians are.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we like that. Yeah, I'd rather
Yeah.
be 2 a.m. or 2 in the morning than having to do like a 10 in the morning kid show, you know. Just,
Get this, when I used to tour, it was 7 a.m.
oh my God.
to get ready
No,
to go
not
tour.
a fan. No,
Yeah.
I don't schedule meetings before 10, as you know. Will not my jam.
Yeah, I appreciate that side of you.
I'm so glad.
Favorite color?
Red.
For those of you who can't see, your hair is red.
Yes,
I would
it
say
is.
it's red.
It is fading right now, but I am naturally blonde. But I dyed my hair red at the beginning of the pandemic, and I've been keeping it going on and off for the last 2 years. But right now, it's in its orange period. But
Yeah.
it is very much yes. It started as red.
Yeah, I remember when you first did it. And,
Yeah, it's
oh,
bright.
So
yeah.
good. Do you have a favorite animal?
Ooh, not really. I really identify with cats. I wish I
Mm-hmm.
had one, but I am very allergic. But I love cats. I love what they're about. we would exist very well in a house together. But alas, I must breathe. Breaks my
but-
heart, but
Yeah.
here we are.
And to close it all off,
Okay.
this was not a rapid fire, but here we go. What's your favorite childhood memory?
Oh man, that's a great question. Both my elementary school and my junior high school were within walking distance of my home. So I just, right when you said it, the first thing that popped into my brain was the green belt. That's like a pipeline, but they've like covered it in grass and trees and beauty. And I've spent many a day walking that, running around with friends, climbing those trees. And I just, yeah, that area, I always walked it to school. Yeah, just that area.
That's so
Yeah.
lovely. Oh, my pal. I think I've said it like 4 times in the episode, but thank you so much for this.
Oh, thank you.
Like, getting to know you on this level is also such a gift.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, just overall, thank you. I don't have anything else to say. If you would like to, do you want to let folks know where they can find you?
Sure. My Instagram handle is @fancifultechnician. Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. Yeah.
Nice. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I'm so stoked and invigorated, and I'll see you next time. Hey, pal.
Enjoying the conversation? Traversing the Azimuth is a brand new branch of Azimuth Theatre, aimed at connecting artists with a wider community, deepening mutual understanding, and getting to share each artist's process and journey.
If you would like to continue hearing these amazing stories, you can help out by going to azimuththeatre.com/sponsorship and sponsor Traversing the Azimuth. Your sponsorship will go straight into paying more artists to come and share what it means for them to be proudly in process.
We would also like to take this moment to thank the Canada Council for the Arts for their support in the pilot of this project.
For more information on Traversing the Azimuth, go to azimuththeatre.com/traversing.